Hello. All right. I think we are live. I apologize for that. We did not set up the microphone while I was setting up the stream. So I hope it's all good now. Let me know if you guys can hear me. That's the first thing. That's how long I haven't um, kind of done any FPL content, which I do have to apologize for. Please let me know if you guys can hear me. That's the first thing. I even forgot to attach the microphone. All right, fantastic. All right, thank you all for letting me know. Thank you for coming down to the Game Week 22 deadline stream. Welcome. It looks a little bit different. I'm streaming from a different room. And yeah, Game Week 22. Again, didn't manage to make any content, but I promise. I say this all the time, but I will be recording a video tonight, and that will be the team selection. That will be the transfer plans for Game Week 23. And looking at Game Week 22, there was a bit of a break from the midweek deadline for Game Week 21 all the way up till now. So a nice little break, but also the EFL Cup games have been played. Some FA Cup games have also been played. And essentially, those give us more information on the blanks and doubles that will be coming up soon. So there will be a segment. That's why I've started kind of half an hour earlier. If not, usually I start 3 hours before the deadline. But I started a little bit earlier today because I wanted to factor in some time to talk a bit about the blanks and doubles, my thoughts surrounding it, and how I intend to navigate the blank and double game week season. Right, so we'll do a bit of that later on. Let me just start with saying hi to some of you guys in the chat. Thank you for coming early. Bread56271 is always the earliest, so that's incredible. He says, hi Leon, how you doing? I'm doing good, thanks for asking. He said, bench O'Reilly or Dorgu. Currently I have O'Reilly in here. I may make a transfer on stream. I have been 50-50 on a transfer, which is whether to sell O'Reilly and look for a replacement. And there's a couple of players or defenders that I've shortlisted, but we'll chat about that as we go on talking about my team. Henry, nice to see you in the chat. It says, hi mate, Leon, how are you? I am good. I hope you're doing well as well, Henry. Trojan says, Saka to Bruno Guimaraes or Gakpo or Enzo. I don't really like Gakpo as a pick, if I'm honest. Enzo, a little bit more. Bruno G feels like a very, very short-term punt. So I don't think from next week onwards, from Game Week 23 onwards, that we'll be looking at Newcastle assets. Especially, I think, once the fixtures start to turn from Game Week 24 onwards, there's a swing for teams like Chelsea, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace. I think that's where we are going to be looking. So, yeah, Bruno G just feels like a very short-term punt. I've had the privilege of having him for all the double-digit hauls that he's had the past few game weeks. So he's had 3 10-pointers in a row, and I managed to catch all of those instead of going for Cunha. That was the decision point, and that has worked out pretty well. So it's helped my rank quite a bit. I'm kind of breaching the 500k mark, so we'll see what happens. There's blanks and doubles coming up. There's lots of opportunities to make up rank. So hopefully we can push still into the top 50k. I think top 10k could be a bit of a stretch, but if we get lucky, you never know. You never know. Buy Enzo or Semenyo. This week, if you're looking for someone to buy, I think the talk around Semenyo, because he's not, going to be playing in the Champions League, there's a lot of kind of Man City forums discussing that he will be utilized more in the Premier League. I think I don't disagree with that, and I do feel like at this point I'm more. It does feel like a bit more of a gamble going for him now because you don't have enough of a sample size to know how Pep is going to use Semenyo. But at least based off of what we've seen, he has looked pretty good. He scored in every game that he's played so far. So I wouldn't blame you for considering Semenyo. I think he's a decent option. Wanik says, hi Leon, how are you doing from Malaysia here? Nice to have you in the chat. Thank you for coming early. What do you think about O'Reilly? So I'm not very confident of O'Reilly, if I'm honest. I'm not very confident of O'Reilly, and that's why I'm thinking about whether I should sell him. I'll talk about that as we discuss my team. Melvin, nice to have you in the chat. Good afternoon to you. Lucas says, Enzo or Tavernier to replace Cunha. We'll be getting Bruno in game week 24 as my Foden replacement. Out of the two, I have to say I prefer Enzo, even though there is a bit of talk as to whether, because the new coach for Chelsea, right, Liam Rosenior, he's come in, and I think he really likes deploying Andre Santos alongside Caicedo is what we imagine we'll see. And then in the number 10 role, there's a lot of options in there, right? Cole Palmer could play there. João Pedro has played there in the last game. And then Mark Guiu was the one who played striker. So in the number 10 spot, there's Cole Palmer, there's João Pedro, there's also Enzo Fernandez. So there's a bit of risk there, I have to say. And lots of games for Chelsea moving forward. Could Enzo miss out 1 or 2 games even? I think potentially. So if you're looking at safety for minutes, maybe Tavernier is the one to go for. Do you think Yehi will start most games for Man City from Wolves onwards? The honest answer is yes. I actually do think that will be the case. But again, as I said, like there's not enough of a sample size. You're pretty much going to be banking on the fact that that does happen. At the end of the day, we don't really know, right? My guess is that it's likely to happen, but I cannot guarantee for sure. Good afternoon to all of you guys who have just joined. I'm just seeing all the later chats. Just give me a moment. Okay, so let's get started with your questions. Okay, seen about 31 of you guys in already. Once there's a bit more people streaming in, we'll talk about the double game week chat that I want to spend a bit of time on to discuss the plans surrounding the blanks and doubles that I have. But let me just start off before I go on a ramble answering all your questions to talk a bit about my team first. And that will kind of contextualize how I recommend transfers or recommend benching decisions for you guys as well. So I have Raya in goal. And I have O'Reilly, Gabriel, and Virgil van Dijk. So in defense, I don't have too much worries. The only player that I'm looking at right now is O'Reilly. That seems like recently he has not started as many games as I would hoped he had. Right. So if you look at the stats for O'Reilly, if I pull up his full profile, so against Brighton here, right, he only got 1 point because he only played 17 minutes, right? And then against Chelsea, so basically he didn't start, right, against Brighton. And this was a game. I mean, it's not ideal, right, that he's not starting. That's the first thing. And then against Chelsea here, yes, he plays 90 minutes, but they do concede as well. And then against Sunderland, he comes off. I think this is the game that they drew 0-0. He comes off at the 56th minute and does not bank the clean sheet. So recently, it's been quite underwhelming as a O'Reilly owner. And there's nothing stopping me from kind of, selling him from game week 24 onwards. But there is some consideration that I'm giving to selling him now in game week 22. Initially, I wanted to keep him for the Wolves game, right? Because as you see here, game week 23, he'll be playing Wolves. It's a plum fixture. I want to have O'Reilly there. But now I can't even guarantee that he's going to start because he's missed out a couple of games already. And even when he starts, you see that he has potential to be subbed off before the 60th minute and not bank the clean sheet. So pretty much there is some thought that I've given over this week as to whether I should just sell him for one of those defenders that I want to discuss later on as well when we're looking at the fixtures. But potentially teams that are looking at Bournemouth, Chelsea, potentially Crystal Palace, but a lot of news in the past few days have come out around Crystal Palace potentially losing some of their key players. So maybe you don't go there. But yeah, overall, O'Reilly is a problem for my team, and I'm still thinking about whether I want to sell him. I'll talk about replacements later on. In midfield, it's Foden, Rice, Rogers, Bruno. Pretty much all of them. I'm not worried at all. I'm quite confident all will start. There is some hint of Foden potentially getting a benching here and there. And I do see the reason for that because now Semenyo has come in. And Semenyo coming in just basically frees up Shirky because Semenyo can play both on the left and on the right. So Ryan Shirky can come in to the number 10 role or the attacking midfield role, and that kind of frees up, Foden. He doesn't have to start every single game. To be fair, he's played quite consistently. He started quite consistently over the past few game weeks already. So there's some rumors going around that he could be due a benching. I don't see it happening against Manchester United. So yeah, but Foden is also another player that is definitely on the chopping block from game week 24. So I just need to ride it out until after Wolves and I'll be selling Foden. No issues for now. And then it's Haaland, Thiago, and Ekitike. For now, I have Haaland captain. Let me put the vice captain on Ekitike. Save the team. So yeah, I mean, captaincy is another discussion that we need to have, but in terms of the attackers, no issues. I would probably be selling Ekitike after this Burnley game, but I have to prioritize some transfers. So again, like if I make the defensive move, then I may not have to sell Ekitike so soon. It's not absolutely necessary. I could actually wait until I absolutely have to. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world playing him against Bournemouth. Even Newcastle here is at home. I think the main fixture that I'm looking at that I want to offload him before is game week 25. So yeah, I mean, there's a runway. There's lots of options that we have for Ekitike at least. But yeah, in terms of my team and starting 11, this is how it looks. On the bench, it's Dubravka, Anderson, Dorgu, and Rodon. I should actually be putting Rodon ahead here. I think I did not save the team. But yeah, this is essentially how I'm choosing to go into game week 22. But if I look at future transfers from game week 24 onwards, there's a few moves that I'm eyeing up. So I could bring Bruno Fernandes in for Phil Foden. Ekitike potentially in game week 24 could be dropped to either a Mark Guiu, a Krupi Jr., or Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Cheap options, basically, so that I can spend money elsewhere if I do require. So again, it depends if I need it. A lot of it would actually come down to whether I want Cole Palmer. And it's a bit risky right now because Cole Palmer... right now, the latest news is that he's back in training, but there's a lot of risk around whether he will start or not. I don't think he's in a state where I can be confident he'll start every single game. So maybe we don't even go to Cole Palmer. And in that case, then which Chelsea attacker do we go to? Do we go for Enzo for slightly safer minutes, even though, as I said just now, he could be at risk? Or do we just go for defensive assets? So someone like Chalobah. Even Sanchez made two big mistakes against Arsenal in the EFL Cup semi-final first leg. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about whether Jorgensen will play instead of Sanchez, but yeah, it remains to be seen. But at least for now, for my team, the only player that I'm looking to sell is O'Reilly. And the second decision I have to make is whether I captain Haaland or Ekitike. So that's kind of my thoughts surrounding the team. Let me put a poll in the chat for captaincy so that we can speak about it later on, and then we can get to your questions. So let me put it out here. Game week 22 captaincy poll. So I'm gonna have Haaland against Manchester United away. There's also Ekitike against Burnley. I think some people say Watkins is an option that they're looking at. So, I mean, if you have Watkins, I think most people don't. So I'm going to leave it at Haaland and Ekitike. I might throw in a Saka here just to put in more options. And then I'll have a last option other, and you can comment who. All right, so there we go with the poll. Let me get to your questions. What do you think about O'Reilly? Yeah, I've just answered that. Thoughts on Munoz because Gehi will be leaving. So overall, my thoughts on Crystal Palace as a team is just that they would be weaker if truly players like Jean-Philippe Mateta also follows Mark Gehi and leaves in the January transfer window, right? Because essentially they're going to be playing with their basically right now, players like Gehi and Mateta at their first team, they're going to be starting their kind of second string team in light of these players leaving, unless they sign players, which I don't think, even if they bring anyone in, is going to be as impactful as someone like a Gehi or Mateta. I think these players form the core structure of the Crystal Palace team and what we know them to be able to do in games. Players like, Mateta, Gehi defensively, we know what they can offer. It's going to be hard to replace them. I think Crystal Palace as a team, performance-wise, would drop, and that's why I'm a little bit less hot on going for their players, even though the fixtures are really, really quite good from game week 24 onwards. So I get the appeal of looking at someone like a Munoz, but you have to factor in Gehi leaving, and therefore clean sheets could be less of a potential. Players like Mateta potentially could leave as well. If he does, then assist threat for Munoz could even come down as well. So we'll see what happens. But at least I think a lot of people are thinking of Munoz because funds are starting to be freed up. And you don't really have places to use them because players like Cole Palmer, you don't really feel safe going for him. The only even Saka, for example, at this point, I don't feel is kind of the best 3 Arsenal assets to go for, in my opinion. I think other people would put him in the top 3. I would say that he's not one of the top 3 Arsenal assets to own for me. So you take out all these expensive players, all of a sudden you have a lot more money. And that's why you're looking at players like Munoz. So I can see the appeal for that, but I would be cautious on Crystal Palace. Krupi Jr. or Matthias Mane, I would say Krupi. I like the fixtures moving forward. Who's a good option for captain in Game Week 22? In the captaincy poll, I have Haaland and Ekitike. I would imagine that Saka is at 0%. Saka is at 0%. I just put him in there for kind of option's sake, but yeah, I can see why nobody has gone for him. So I would say it's split between Haaland and Ekitike mainly. Where am I from? I'm from Singapore. Pikachu says, Helen, I have triple Arsenal, triple Liverpool, triple Man City. Should I make transfers to get a City player out? I don't think it's necessary this week because if you have a lot of City players, next week, the good news is they'll be playing against Wolves. So the only player I've been looking to ship out from Man City, or at least give some consideration to, is O'Reilly, which is currently the case for myself as well. Satyaki says, hi Leon, how was your game week 21? Game week 21 went pretty well, if I'm honest. Let me just pull up the scores. So game week 21, I scored 20 points above the average, which was great. Couple of double-digit hauls here from Bruno Guimaraes, 11 points. Thiago, 12. Thiago has been absolutely insane. I was quite keen on keeping him and also having Ekitike at that point when a lot of people were selling Thiago to move to Ekitike. I was quite keen on keeping Thiago, and that's why I made, I think, 2 to 3 transfers just to shift my team a little bit, change the structure to bring Ekitike in still for Wolves and Leeds, of which he didn't do very well against, but at least has Burnley now. But yeah, bring Ekitike in, change the structure a little bit, shift the funds around, and I'm thankful that I kept Thiago. So we'll see, how he does. Right now, he's just someone that even people are continuing to bring in, even though he plays Chelsea, and I can just see the reason why he's on insane form right now. So yeah, then Haaland captain. Points for Anderson. He gets DEFCON as well as an assist, so that's great. Dorgu with an assist as well, and then Gabriel with the clean sheet. Raya also with a clean sheet. The transfer I made last week was to bring Gabriel in for Joachim Anderson. So yeah, that worked out pretty okay. And yeah, big green arrow, I'd say, into the top 600k, but we're hoping to push even further. But I'm happy with how game week 21 turned out. I'm looking up a lot because the screen, the second screen that I have is kind of slightly above me. So if you guys are wondering, that's the reason why. Which goalkeeper should I get? I want to sell Raya to get Gabriel. In terms of goalkeepers right now, initially I was quite keen on getting Sanchez, but there is some fear that if the manager continues to want to play out from the back, that I think Sanchez, that is his weak point, and he could be exposed a lot more. And when that happens, then I think you could see performances drop, his confidence drop, and that would only lead to Jorgensen coming in. So there's a bit of risk there. I think other keepers that you could look at longer term, if you look at the fixtures, I would say Petrovic is one of them. Even though Bournemouth defensively are not good at all, but the fixtures are there for them moving forward. I would say Verbruggen is also someone that could be looked at. Kelleher is facing some tough fixtures, I'd say, because I had a look at the fixtures from Thiago as well. I mean, yeah, it's a mixed bag of fixtures because they play Chelsea, Aston Villa, Newcastle, and Arsenal in the next 5. So I probably wouldn't go to Kelleher, even though he's cheap. Pickford, another one you could look at. But yeah, if not, I think keepers-wise, if I have to really just pick one right now, it probably would be Verbruggen. Cheap keeper-wise. Wirtz or Haaland for captain. I'd say Haaland over Wirtz. The only other player that I would captain aside from Haaland is Ekitike. It sounds obvious, but I think it's mainly because of the goal threat, right? Because Wirtz is, I feel, more of an assist threat. Even though I know he has been scoring recently, he's finally, coming into a bit of form for Liverpool. But yeah, I would still say that Ekitike is the one that I would captain. He has greater goal threat. Views on Semenyo versus another standard midfielder. I can see the appeal for Semenyo, right? And actually, I wouldn't even rule out doing Foden to Semenyo in game week 24, but I need to see a couple of games. I also want to just have a larger sample size to see that Semenyo starts consistently. That's my only concern with him. Like, the reality of the fact is that he is now a Manchester City player, and as with all Manchester City players that are not called Erling Haaland, there's always a risk of randomly getting benched for no good reason, right? So I would say proceed with caution for Semenyo. Unless you're just really keen on gambling, then you could probably go there. Julian says another standard midfielder like Garner. So for Garner, I would say that he has died down a little bit if I'm being honest. Like, there was a point in time he was getting double-digit hauls, and also picking up after Kenyan Dewsbury Hall, because that was the period of time that Everton was doing pretty well. Recently, I don't think attackingly their performances are quite convincing. Fixtures-wise, it's also not super ideal. So I think when you're comparing someone like Garner and Semenyo, what's more effective for me would be the funds. Like, do you need the funds moving forward? If you do need the funds, then I guess Garner or even one of those cheaper midfield options could make sense in the 6 million bracket, or even like a Marcus Tavernier from Bournemouth could be looked at. But if you don't really have a budget constraint, then I think Semenyo is okay as well. But again, proceed with caution on Semenyo. Okay, I'm quite behind in the chat. Let me just speed through a little bit. If I miss your questions, please just help me out and drop it in the chat. Again, Melvin says, should I start Theo or Chalobah? Thinking of Captain Ekitike over Haaland to chase rank. Thinking of captaining Ekitike is fine, right? I think it's close enough. It's one of those weeks that, I mean, the swing could be huge, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those weeks that it could be justified to go against Haaland. Like, there is narratives going around. You could definitely spin it in a way to say that Ekitike... I mean, if you ask me right now, or if you tell me right now that at the end of the game week, Ekitike would have outscored Haaland, I wouldn't be extremely surprised. That's the thing. So yeah, it's kind of also in a position where if you're chasing rank, it could make sense. One free transfer available. Keane to Chalobah, Dorgu to Cash, Cunha to Enzo. Should I -4? I think out of all these moves, the Cunha to Enzo move is the one that I'll prioritize the most. Billy, nice to have you in the chat. Verts or Bruno Fernandes captain? I wouldn't go there. Hey, I have Bowen. What do you think? Should I transfer him for Thiago? I have Ekitike as well. I think honestly Bowen is a sell, if I'm being honest, and I wouldn't blame you for going for Thiago with his form. Is it a must to make this move because Thiago plays Chelsea? I wouldn't say it's a must. You could actually delay this move 1 week later, but no doubt I would say Bowen is a sell. What do you think about Paqueta since I own him? Paqueta has had a lot of news around him recently. One moment he's injured, one moment he's returning from injury, and then one moment he's leaving the club. Like there's a lot of discourse around Paqueta right now. I would say that he is probably a transfer out as well. At the moment, our captain is Watkins. Fair enough. If you have Watkins, I wouldn't actually blame you. Aston Villa looked pretty good in the attack. Good morning, Omar. Nice to have you in the chat. Or should I captain Bruno, Enzo, Saka, Rogers, Thiago, Haaland instead of Watkins? I mean, you pretty much listed all the potential captain options. I would still kind of put Ekitike up there, but you haven't listed Ekitike, maybe because you don't have him. If it's not Haaland, I don't think I would rank any of those players higher than Haaland in terms of the captaincy rankings this week. O'Reilly and Mitchell to Gabriel and Konsa, or Timber to Gabriel and Mitchell to Van de Ven. I wouldn't do the Van de Ven move. Timber to Gabriel... I think O'Reilly to Gabriel makes a bit more sense. So I probably would do the first variation of all those moves. Wilson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Thiago, bench 1. I'd say bench Calvert-Lewin. Also have Palmer, Saka, Rice, Bruno G, and Haaland. Yeah, the rest, those players are fine. I would just bench Calvert-Lewin out of those. I've seen a similar benching headache to yours, Ali, and I did the same thing as well. I recommended the same thing, to be benching Calvert-Lewin. Hey, I have Bowen. I answered this one already. Aim players for Newcastle versus Burnley or Liverpool versus Wolves. In what context? In what context are you referring to? Rogers is my captain this game week. That is bold. That is a bold differential pick. Got 4 City, Donnarumma, Cherki, Semenyo, Haaland, Timber plus Nkappi. I want to upgrade Nkappi to Gabriel. Which City asset would you transfer out? I can't see a reason why I would sell Cherki, Semenyo, and Haaland. I mean, all of them look it seems right now like you should be keeping those players for the Wolves game. So if you really have to sell one, I would say Donnarumma is the one. And then you'll be looking at kind of keeper options. I'd say Verbruggen, as I mentioned just now, is one to look at. Sanchez, if you're confident of his minutes. If not, Petrovic, if you are confident that Bournemouth would turn it around in their defensive performances, would turn it around with the fixtures that they have moving forward. But yeah, it's a tricky spot because you want to upgrade Nkapi to Gabriel, but you're forced to sell a City asset. I would say Donnarumma. Triple City attack for game week 22 and 23 could work out insanely well. It could. Currently got a back three of Hall, Frimpong, and Gabriel. Alderete first on the bench, starting Cunha. Would you play a back four with Alderete, drop Cunha to the bench, or stick with the back three? Do you not have transfers to take Cunha out? I think it's a good time to sell Cunha. Nice to have you in the chat, Brad. You are back again. You always come super early, I have to say. Thank you for coming early. Alan says, hi bro, if Foden doesn't start, is it worth taking a -4 defender starting rank? If Foden doesn't start, is it worth taking a -4 to sell him? I guess it comes down to your bench options. I wouldn't say he's an immediate sell, because if he doesn't start this one, then maybe he starts against Wolves next week. Best Keane replacement long term. For me, it would come from Bournemouth. It would come from Chelsea, potentially, and also Crystal Palace if you still are confident, even though they're losing McGahey right now. But yeah, fixtures-wise, these are the three teams that I've been looking at for the next few game weeks. Is Enzo the best replacement for Cunha? At this point, I would say Enzo is the only Chelsea attacker that I would be confident to go for right now. Rodon, Tarkowski, Anderson. What is the starting rank? I would say Anderson from Fulham, followed by Tarkowski, followed by Rodon. That would be the ranking. The Pepfectionist says, one free transfer, 2.7 million in the bank. Transfer priority out of Foden/Cunha. Best replacement, the squad is Raya, Gabriel, Senesi, Anderson, Van Dijk, Semenyo, Wilson, Foden, Cunha. I would say Cunha. Cunha is the one that you have to transfer out, and I'd probably be looking at Enzo Fernandez. Anyone with 5 Man City players in their team? I think there are a few. I've seen a few on Twitter, because essentially they have the two new Man City players, which is, Gehi has already had the here we go. So it'd be Gehi and then Semenyo, and then something like Haaland, Foden, and I don't know, O'Reilly, or even crazier would be Sharky. So definitely seen a few of those. Cunha to Rogers or Enzo? I'd say Rogers. Rogers first, then Enzo. Thank you for a good stream as always. Thank you very much for that. If not talked about, is Frimpong a good asset now? I would say short term. Frimpong to me is a short term asset. I don't think he's in Liverpool. Salah will be coming back from AFCON very soon. He just lost in the semi-finals to Senegal. So Salah will be back. We'll see what happens. But that's why I wouldn't move for Frimpong. Ekitike or Thiago and Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a wild card. If you're on a wild card, I would see the appeal to go for Ekitike still and then transfer him out later down the line. So I would say Haaland, Thiago, Ekitike is the front three that I'll go for on a wild card. Not Calvert-Lewin. I think Calvert-Lewin later on you can downgrade one of the options to him, potentially Ekitike to free up funds. On a wildcard, Ekitike or Thiago, I kind of answered this in the previous one. Palmer or Enzo and Rogers. I would rank Rogers first, and then Enzo, and then Palmer. Okay, there's about 63 of you guys. By the way, if you guys haven't already, please help me out and drop a like on the stream. That would be amazing. I want to speak a bit about the double game weeks. So let me bring up the fixture chart. So let me bring up the Okay, so I'm gonna spend a bit of time here on this kind of fixture difficulty rating. So this is the FPL.team transfer planner. By the way, completely free to use. They're not even sponsoring this at all. It's just I just find the tool really useful. So check it out for yourselves if you want, fpl.team. And I want to use the fixture ticker that they have here to discuss a little bit about the blanks and doubles. So what they've done, something that's very handy on this website is there is this button that you can press just above at the top called Set Planet FPL Projected Fixtures. It's right here. Let me see if I can highlight it. Oh, I can't. Okay, so it's just basically this button here, and I'm going to click it, and you'll see the fixtures change. And pretty much this is the predictions of the blanks and doubles moving forward. So just a very quick recap for those of you who have not kind of watched content or read up about the blanks and doubles this week. A very, very quick summary is that there is maybe 4 to 5 game weeks that you need to pay attention to in the game weeks moving forward. The first one is game week 26. And I think before I even go to game week 26, I would start first with the blanks, because blank game weeks happen and therefore they lead to double game weeks. So it'd be easier to highlight the blank game weeks first, and then therefore why it leads to double game weeks in some of the other weeks that the fixtures fall into. So the big double game weeks the big blank game weeks this season would be game week 31, which is when we have the AFL Cup finals. That would the teams involved in the AFL Cup finals would blank, and what it's looking like is Arsenal as well as Man City would be the teams advancing, because Man City just won Newcastle, and that's the first leg, obviously. So 2-0. It could turn the other way, but right now City are definitely the favourites. And then Arsenal versus Chelsea. Chelsea just lost 3-2 to Arsenal. Could they turn it around? I wouldn't put it. I support Chelsea. It could. I would hope that happens. But in terms of odds wise, it looks as if Arsenal would progress to the finals as well. So that means a Man City versus Arsenal Carabao Cup finals, and therefore Arsenal and Man City blank in game week 31, and also their opponents for that week. So that would be Crystal Palace for Crystal Palace for Man City, and that's why they're also blanking. And it'll be Wolves for Arsenal, which is why Wolves also blank in game week 31. And where would these fixtures go? They have to go somewhere. So for Arsenal, it's likely going to move to game week 26, mainly because in the Champions League, Arsenal are already top 8, or pretty much guaranteed top 8, so they would have a free midweek in kind of game week 26. There's a small chance that this Wolves game could move to game week 27, giving Arsenal the double game week in game week 27 instead. But what's more likely is game week 26. So right now this is where they have the prediction. So Wolves and Arsenal doubling in game week 26. This is when I think you want to definitely have the best 3 Arsenal assets by the time this double happens. And then when you look at the Man City versus Crystal Palace fixture, because it can't move forward due to Crystal Palace having matches during the midweek of game week 26 and game week 27, so unlike Arsenal where they can move it forward, Crystal Palace would be playing the Conference League playoff games, and therefore Man City and Crystal Palace can't be moved forward. Man City and Crystal Palace right now is predicted to move to game week 33. Likely. And that is kind of my own prediction, but there is obviously other permutations that Planet FPL has taken into account, and that's why they put Crystal Palace and Man City in game week 36 instead. That could potentially happen, right? It would either fall into game week 33 or 36. Those would be the double game weeks. And then the next blank game week to talk about is game week 34. The game week 34 blank game week is caused by the FA Cup semi-final. So this is likely going to be a bigger blank then game week 31. So all the teams blanking in game week 34, which right now are predicted to be, as you guys can see, Arsenal, Brighton, Burnley, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Man City, and Newcastle. All these players, all these teams are likely to blank because either the teams themselves or the teams that they're going to play against in game week 34 are involved in the FA Cup's semi-finals, right? So basically, they would have blanks in 34. The fixtures have to move somewhere, and they would either move to game week 33, giving the teams a double in 33, or game week 36, giving the teams a double in game week 36. So overall, big picture, I don't think we have to scrutinize every single fixture right now, but at least big picture wise, you have to take note. A likely double for Arsenal in game week 26, a blank for Arsenal, Man City, and their opponents in game week 31. Then in game week 33, there would be a big double game week there. Game week 34 would be a big blank game week. Game week 36 would be a small double game week. So with all of that in mind, you kind of have to plan your chips around. And I would say that right now, a very popular chip strategy is to dead end into game week 31. It just seems like the most likely one that people would use is to dead end into game week 31, right? All those teams that are blanking like Arsenal, Palace, City, Wolves, sell out of those players and bring in players who actually have a fixture in 31. And then after that, in game week 32, buy them back because you want the Arsenal players back again, especially with their double in game week 33. So you buy back all those players in 32 with your wild card. And then in 33, you potentially bench boost because that's the biggest double game week. And then you free hit in 34 to lose all those players that will be blanking. And then in game week 36, you use your triple captain. So right now, that is the very likely chip strategy that a lot of people would tend towards, but I would say that it's not the only one that makes sense. I think if you want to capture early rank gains, game week 24, where there's a fixture swing for a lot of teams, the teams that I would highlight would be Bournemouth, Chelsea. You look at the Bournemouth fixture starting from Wolves in game week 24, it's just very ideal, right? This one. And then there's also Chelsea versus West Ham. This is also a start of a very good run for Chelsea, right? West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley. It's crazy. And then Crystal Palace, because you see Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Burnley, Wolves, United, Tottenham, Leeds. It just looks really, really good. So I would say that game week 24, if your team is in a bit of a shambles and you want to just kind of tackle the good fixtures for all these teams, which I would say people who aren't wildcarding would likely just use a couple of free transfers to bring some of these players in. I would say that on a wildcard, you would be able to stack your team with your FPL team with players from these teams with good fixtures and try and capitalize for early gains. Obviously, later on that you have to deal with the blanks and doubles with free transfers, but that could be managed. So yeah, I would say two main strategies that have come out, at least out of the announcements that we've had, FA Cup results, EFL Cup results. So let's see what happens as the games go on. There'll be a transfer plans video that I have tonight. I'll release it after the Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest game. And yeah, hopefully that one helps you guys in terms of framing what are my plans moving forward after all this information. So hopefully that was all right on a really, really long ramble, but it's mainly because I didn't have time to make content this week, and that's why I've kind of packed everything into... That could have been a video, if I'm honest. I could have clipped that and put it into a video. But yeah, if you guys have any further questions on blanks and doubles, drop it in the chat. Gotta get some water. Okay, thinking of selling Haaland, is it suicide? He is in low form, said Pep. I mean, that's the thing, right? Pep says that Haaland is tired and he hopes that Marmoush can come back in time to cover Haaland. But honestly speaking, there were games like against Exeter, for example, where they won, I think 10-1. You could have not played Haaland in that game. If he was truly exhausted, you could have rested him in that game. So I would kind of take it with a pinch of salt, honestly. Thank you very much, Biel Shukra. Morning Bud. Start 1. Mukiele, Theo, or Garner? Probably Theo, because he plays Wolves. Start Anderson from Forest or Krupi Jr. I would say Krupi Jr. Start Welbeck or Palmer. Cole Palmer. I mean, he's back in training now, so I take a chance with him if you have. Why would Foden not start? I have Cunha, Saka, Shirky, Foden, Soboslai. I don't know where to start. Probably Cunha out. Yes, I think out of those, Cunha out. I actually think Foden will start, but there are just some I would say murmurings from the Man City forums that are hinting that Phil Foden should be missing a game soon. Probably because of load management, but I wouldn't say that they don't start him against Manchester United. I actually think that it's very likely. Most predictors, at least for this week, have him starting. Later weeks, we take it week by week. Simeon says no free transfers. Back 3 of Hall, Frimpong, and Gabriel. Start a back 4 with Alderete or back 3 with Cunha. -4 Cunha out or bench Cunha, etc. Alright, so basically it's play a back 3 of Hall, Frimpong, Gabriel, and also start Cunha, or play a back 4 with Alderete. I would say if you have Cunha, do you take a -4 to sell him? Or bench him and play Alderete? I probably bench him and play Alderete, I probably bench. I don't think it's worth taking a -4 to sell him. Also because there will be more information gained, and if you can wait until game week 24, potentially the replacement that you bring in for Cunha would be slightly different. So I would say roll and start the back 4 with Alderete and bench Cunha. Who would you vice? Watkins, Rice, or Thiago? I would vice captain. Out of those 3, probably Watkins. 1 free transfer, Cunha to Rogers or Enzo. I would say Rogers first, then Enzo. So I would go Cunha to Rogers, basically. That's the ranking that I have. Andrew Kirkland says, I want to upgrade the third forward. I feel like I've missed the Thiago boat. I have Haaland Ekitike. Considering Krupi as a differential, is this a good idea or am I chasing too hard? And is Thiago obvious? I mean, the fixtures are quite difficult for Thiago, if I'm being honest. It's Chelsea away, Aston Villa away, Newcastle away, Arsenal at home. The only home game that they have out of the next 5 that is good is Nottingham Forest. So I'd actually say that it makes sense not to go for Thiago, to be honest. Like that could sound crazy. He could absolutely rip it up against Chelsea tonight, but I still think if you play the fixtures game, I think Krupi as a differential is perfectly fine. Who would you start between Alderete, O'Reilly, or Richards? I want to say Richards, but Gahey has left. I want to say Richards, but Gahey has left. So if I'm weighing everything up, I'm also kind of banking on the fact that O'Reilly will start. I'm kind of waiting for team news. I'm waiting for any team news because Man City is the early kickoff. I want to decide if I should sell O'Reilly or not. So honestly speaking, out of those three, the only one that I'd be confident of, or the way that I would rank it rather, is Richards and then Alderete in that order. But where do you kind of put O'Reilly? That's the thing. Because I'm honestly not confident. All it takes is just one team league later on that O'Reilly isn't starting, and I'm going to sell him regardless of whether I want to keep him for Wolves in the next week or not. The other option that I have is just starting Rodon ahead of O'Reilly, which is not the worst thing in the world. If I look at O'Reilly replacements, like really this week, I'm kind of looking at Chalobah only. Really only considering Chalobah. But to be fair, Chelsea fixtures over the next few, there are so many games that maybe Chalobah misses one out of those games. And even so, this week Chalobah plays Thiago, so I don't see a reason why I should be moving for Chalobah. And then when I look at Bournemouth, it's not as if I desperately need a Bournemouth defender right now. I think game week 24, moving for a Bournemouth defender is fine. This week, Bournemouth have Brighton. I don't think it's an easy game for them at all. So I think even a Bournemouth defender could wait. And then it's Crystal Palace, but right now I don't feel confident. So I probably wouldn't make a transfer. I mean, thinking about it like this, I'd probably go Rodon ahead of O'Reilly if O'Reilly doesn't start. And that's likely the only change I make then. Captaincy wise though, I am strongly considering Ekitike. Let me just put it there. Let me get to your questions. Right, give me a moment. I will be back very, very quick. All right. Apologies for that. Had to just sort something out really quick. Okay, let's go. Will Gehi play? He wouldn't play. Gehi is, I mean, as Glasner has already said, Gehi wouldn't be starting this game. Captain Gabriel. I should have put him in the captain options, if I'm honest. But yeah, I have to say Haaland and Ekitike is still probably the ones I prefer. Kindoichi says, "Hi Leon, my mids are Foden, Cunha, Enzo, Saka, and Wilson. One free transfer. Thinking of transferring Cunha out for Verts or Gakpo to chase rank. What do you think?" If you only have one free transfer, I wouldn't waste it on going for a short-term punt like Verts or Gakpo. I think Verts and Gakpo for a short-term move is only for those people with a luxury of transfers. That's the only reason why I would chase the short-term gains. If not longer term, I don't think you'd be wanting these players in your team. I think you'll be looking at, Chelsea players, potentially some Bournemouth players, Palace attackers potentially. Cunha to Bruno Fernandes or Enzo. I would say Enzo. Bruno Fernandes this week and also the week after. Not ideal fixtures. Yes, he will not play. Vincent, nice to have you in the chat. A member in the chat. Our start one, Matthias Nunes, Garner or Mane. I would say Matthias Nunes. I'm much more confident of Matthias Nunes starting than O'Reilly. Looking back, I really think that O'Reilly could have been a bit of a mistake. Matthias Nunes would have been the one, to be honest. Adit says, what's up, Leon? Doing good this season so far. 4K overall rank. That is insane. Wanted your opinion on Munoz and if he'll be viable in a few weeks, considering the Gehi move and Palace being shaky in general. I mean, you essentially said it. That firstly, the fixtures will be there in a few weeks. Regardless of what happens to the Crystal Palace team, the fixtures will be there. Gehi moving definitely brings the standard of the overall team or the performances, I think, will drop. And it remains to be seen as well on Mateta. But what I'd say for Munoz in general is that at least he has various routes to points, right? He has attacking threat. If they keep a clean sheet, he'll get points as well. DEFCON not the best for Munoz. He's not really good in terms of DEFCON potential. So yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I think, in fact, right now, you don't move for him and you don't have to think about it too much. You have a bit of time to assess at least how Crystal Palace firstly deal with the lack of Mark Gehi, and then if a few more people leave, then how they deal with that before you actually move for Munoz. Start one of Theo Chalobah or Anderson from Fulham. I would say Theo. I would start Theo ahead of Chalobah and also ahead of Anderson. Start Van de Ven, Mukiele or O'Reilly. Well, Spurs this week, they have West Ham. So I guess you can say that Van de Ven is good enough to start. I put Van de Ven first, and then after that, I'd say O'Reilly and then Mukiele. But on O'Reilly, I would wait for a couple of leaks to come out first and see whether O'Reilly is likely to play or not. Start Chalobah, Senesi, or Alderete against a broken Palace. I would start Senesi out of the rest of the players. I mean, if I'm to rank it, it'd be Senesi, then Chalobah, then Alderete. That's how I'd rank it. Briol or Minte first bench. Probably Minte first bench then. I mean, I'm not confident of a start, but I'm also not confident of a clean sheet for Leeds. Okay, it's 50-50 this. It's 50-50. I guess you take the one that's likely going to play more minutes, so I kind of changed my mind. I probably put Bijol ahead of Minte on the bench. Henry says, how long fixtures, Enzo or Palmer? If I'm interpreting that correctly, I would say that from game week 24 onwards, their fixtures start to get very, very good. And then after that run of, West Ham, Burnley, Leeds, then you can sell them. So you're looking at about 5 to 6 game weeks with Chelsea assets, essentially. Gakpo playing minutes. Sorry. Can I guess Gakpo's playing minutes? I would say that I think it's likely he'll start this game against Burnley, but I wouldn't say it's enough to captain. I wouldn't say it's enough to captain. I would say if you ask me to put a number to it, 70, 75. You gotta bear in mind that he's just coming back from injury as well. Transfer Cunha out this week. Midfield is Cunha, Foden, Anderson, Saka, Rice. I would say yes, transfer Cunha out. Potentially, if you're able to, drop Anderson down to the bench as well. Who to start? Tarkowski or a Sunderland defender? I'd say Tarkowski. I have Bijol first for DEFCON and minutes. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So Bijol first ahead of Minte for minutes is eventually what I think I would do as well. Senesi, Anderson, or Dorgu first bench. I would say Senesi first bench, and then followed by Anderson and then Dorgu, just like the way I've done it here. Which game week is ideal to bring in Munoz? I'd say game week 24 onwards. It gives you a bit of lead time, essentially. You have a bit of time to think about whether you want to bring Munoz in or not. Yep. All right, we're going to go for another, I'd say 5 to 10 minutes. So if you haven't got your questions in, or if I've missed your questions, I apologize. Drop it in the chat and we will get to your questions. Okay, let me speed through all these questions and we'll call it a day. Bowen, sell or hold this game week? I would say sell. Krupi Jr., Tarkovsky, Rodon, Anderson, defensive bench rank. If I look at your, I say Tarkovsky out of all of those. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about Anderson from Nottingham Forest because you spelled it with an O. So if you're talking about those 4 players, I would say Krupi Jr., Tarkovsky, and then Rodon Anderson. Exactly in that order is how I would bench / start them. When are you likely to wildcard? I'm planning to save it all the way until game week 32. After playing Burnley, who's a good option to change with Virgil and Ekitike? So I would say you'll be looking at your Chelsea defenders, your Bournemouth defenders as well. But I also would say that it's not an absolute rush. I may keep them all the way until 24. How serious are you on Ekitike, captain? I'd say really right now it's 50-50. It's as I'm equally as likely to captain Haaland as I am to captain Ekitike. Like most times, I'll be honest and say if I'm leaning towards Haaland, I would say Haaland 60 and Ekitike 40. But yeah, really it's 50-50 right now. And I'm just kind of having a think about it. I'll post it on the socials again just before the deadline. But yeah, you guys know where to find me. Is Tavernier a buy? I would say yes. I have Kelleher in goal. move to someone else for the short term, or keep until fixtures get good again? I think it's worth moving for Sanchez, but is it a priority? I would say no. I don't think it's a priority. In fact, right now, I think it's more about saving transfers, getting to a point where in Game Week 24, see what transfers you want to make, prioritize those higher upside transfers, maybe bring in your Chelsea attackers, your Palace attackers, your Bournemouth attackers. And then after that, looking at your keeper transfer as more of something that you deal with if you have extra transfers. Hey Console, start Stack or Cunha out to another midfielder. I'd say Cunha out to another midfielder, especially if it's for free. Mukiele, Theo, Matthias Nunes, Wilson, Garner. Play which 3 players? I would definitely start Theo, Wilson, and then Matthias Nunes. That's the way I'd go. I'd have Garner first bench though, and then Mukiele second bench. Will you consider selling Foden? Yes, from Game Week 24 onwards, very likely. Bruno Fernandes is someone I'm looking at. Van de Ven thoughts? I think Van de Ven is a short-term kind of a pick. For me, Van de Ven is, Spurs defensively as well. It's not the one that I will go to right away. All right, we're going to leave it at that. Thank you all for coming down today to chat about Game Week 22. I'll be recording a video later tonight, so look out for that one after the Arsenal game. If not, I'll see you in Game Week 23 content. Videos should be back on the channel now. And yeah, hope to see you guys in there. All the best for Game Week 22. You know where to find me if you still have questions. I'll be in the group chat. At the bottom here, there is a QR code. I think in a bit, the QR code will show. And yeah, you can join the Telegram chat, ask me a couple of questions. I'll be active there. I'll be active in the Gold members chat as well. And I'll post my team on socials just before the deadline, usually an hour before the deadline. But today I think we'll be closer to the deadline because I'll be waiting for any last minute Man City leaks. If not, thank you for watching. Do drop a like, do subscribe, and I will see you in more FPL content, Game Week 23 content coming very soon. Bye bye.